Hello there again. Oof, we have another SATC video. This time, Miranda. Last time we left Miranda finally giving in to Steve and not only letting him crash at her place while they're trying to get back together after not only a couple of days, but basically to make her place his own. According to some of you, when a man like Steve wants to push you into friendship, situationship, relationship, moving in with you in such a short time, he's probably getting evicted and he needs a place to stay. For others, Steve is just trying to destroy a career-oriented woman because she doesn't want babies when he decides he is ready to. Okay, I'm exaggerating. It's not like Steve is pushing Miranda to get pregnant. Steve and Miranda are back together and are exclusive, committed. Steve moves into her apartment. Now, here's the thing. Miranda's apartment is kind of expensive, okay? She's a lawyer working to become partner. And you know she's not living in a one-bedroom. Is she? But one of the positive sides to move in together with your partner is that you can split your expenses. You can both contribute to the household. And Steve is excited because he finally got a chance to bring some ka-ching into this household.
Guess what happened? It's so fucking great.
What?
He has been picked to throw a half-court $1 million shot at the next Knicks game.
They picked my name from the contest I entered at Sam Goody's.
Wow, great.
Steve is gonna become a millionaire. Oh, I need to work 9 to 9 to afford this apartment. He's gonna bring in the big bucks. He'd be rich. If I would get drawn, if I would get picked, if I would get a shot, even a shot to become a millionaire, oh, bis, I would be all over it. Back then, before life hit me, before it put me through shit, before I learned that, for me, things need to go hard, okay? I'm never just gonna win at something. I'm never just gonna be good at something. No, I need to put in the work. I need to go through shit. I need to be smeared all over the face. I need to have that stink follow me for at least a couple of more years before I see some success. Oh, and I know who to blame for that. Saturn, bitch. So if this version got the chance that Steve got, I would be like, the fuck I'm gonna win. This is probably rigged. There's probably a magnet in the ball that in any case someone is gonna monitor and it will never hit the hoop. Steve needs to grow up. But if I remember the times when I lived positively, when I was walking with a certain ease in my step, when I believed that good things are just meant for you and I'm lucky. The times when I went out to a club and I actually enjoyed it for more than 2 hours and I wasn't just looking around thinking, these baboons, I want to go home, Netflix and chill. If I was looking at this in that version of me, I would be as excited as Steve. And if my partner got a chance to do it, we'd be practicing day and night. We'd be watching Last Dance, what was it? The Last Dance from Michael Jordan. And we'll be learning how does Steve Curry figure out when the floor is crooked. We'd be on it. And we would definitely have those new Jordans. I mean, you have to be stylish for TV. Okay. At the end of the day, it's $1 million shot. You need to invest in it. Hypothetically, there's no way I'm going on national TV to embarrass myself when the ball is obviously rigged. Miranda is, I guess, in the cynical phase because she ain't believing this. I mean, she's excited for Steve, but she's also like, don't get your hopes up, right? It's still a half-court shot.
Yes, Steve, it is fucking great, but just don't get your hopes up. It's a kind of tough shot, isn't it?
Yes, for others, but not for Steve. Don't let his short legs fool ya. He is amazing. He just hasn't been scouted yet, okay? But because Miranda is a little bit skeptical, he is gonna show her. Next practice he does, she should join him and cheer him on, support him, see how good he is, believe in her partner. But will the cynic Miranda do it?
Promise?
Yes, she will.
Oh! Hey!
Yeah, I'll buy you more. I'm a fucking millionaire! Woo!
You should always support your partner. Now, when she's alone with Carrie, she's a little bit like, this man, he really thinks that he's gonna win $1 million by shooting hoops, half-court shot. which some professionals can do it. And he expects her to cheer him on. Like, yay, this is very possible. I mean, if he would have a real dream, like opening a bar, she would have no problem believing in him, supporting him. But this is a little bit out there.
But this is just silly.
So I guess this episode, we're gonna have the battle between those who still have that spark, who still believe, and those who don't because life hit them. I mean, Miranda had to go through shit to get where she is. And there's no way she's gonna get excited for Steve now just walking up the court, down the court, shooting a hoop and becoming a millionaire? Bitch, please. When it comes to Miranda, you can kind of understand her, right? Like I said, she's a lawyer. She's been working hard her whole life. Things weren't just handed to her from what we see or what we understand. And then you can also understand Steve. Maybe he never got a chance to pursue a higher education, to get a better job, to earn more money. Maybe it's even difficult for him to even grasp that he could do something like that, right? So when this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity comes, he's really excited about it. It's not so uncommon for, let's say, lower middle class to have less faith in them actually pursuing long-term success and more faith in this one-time opportunity to win a grand prize. I mean, when someone is struggling day to day, living paycheck to paycheck, it is much easier to fall into, oh, I can get immediately rich. I can get this prize. I will win the lottery, because it plays into this instant gratification. It's difficult to think about, oh, I'm going to open a business, or because that's long term. That's a lot in investment. So the fact that Steve got so excited also, in a way, shows this difference between someone like Steve, which one would say is working more of a lower paying job, I guess, versus Miranda, who is a lawyer. Miranda is like, this is unrealistic, which it kind of is, while Steve is like, this is an opportunity, which, I mean, it could also be. But the real question is, when you have two different experiences, let's say realist versus the dreamer, how do you manage that? How do you support one another? What's right and what isn't?
Isn't that what you couples do? Support each other's silly dreams?
Now, I think that in an ideal situation where two people feel equal, even though one's a realist, the other one is a dreamer, I would say that there shouldn't be any problem in the realist to loosen up a little bit, to take it a little bit as fun, okay? Let's try, you never know, right? And on the other hand, for the dreamer, to be a bit like, I know that this is very unlikely, but I still want to do it. I still want to get excited about it. Basically balancing out the two. And I honestly see that Miranda is doing that. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't experienced being called stupid for the dreams that I have. She could even look at Steve and say, what the fuck are you talking about? Are you really that immature, believing that you're actually going to win this $1 million? I mean, this is ridiculous. You have those people who literally crush your dreams because they themselves can't believe it. I think she handled the situation as normal as possible based on what she believes. Despite her doubts, she's still excited that Steve is excited. And she even says that she's gonna go to see him practice. The problem is, Miranda doesn't realize that Steve is not where she is. Steve might not feel as equal in this relationship, and that creates the problem. But she is about to find out. The day has come. It is Saturday, and it is time for Steve to practice his shoots and Miranda to cheer him on. There's a little tiny bit of a problem though. Miranda got unexpected workload. She doesn't have time to go with Steve to the court.
First thing Monday, I don't have time to go watch you shoot hoop.
And this is where shit goes down. You see, Steve is getting a bit annoyed, or slowly increasing his piss. No, that's not what it. Getting increasingly pissed.
No, you don't. Let's go. Come on, you promised. I asked you to do one thing, one time for me, and you can't do it. What the fuck is that?
When will it ever be that Miranda takes her time to support whatever Steve wants? Does Miranda even know how many times Steve joined her to stupid lawyer things just because he wanted to support her? But now when it's for him, she can't? What the fuck is that? Miranda is a little bit shook, a little bit confused. She doesn't understand where the fuck is this attitude coming from. And also, why is it such a big deal? It's just a stupid half-court shot. It matters to Steve, and he slams the ball in the hallway.
Why are you getting so upset? It's just a stupid half-court shot.
Not to me, it's not. Why do you always have to be so pessimistic you can't make that shot?
Steve, come on.
It's not just the shot, it's everything.
She never believes in them when it comes to moving in, when it comes to the relationship. So for Steve, if this is ever gonna work, she needs to believe a little bit more in the two of them. He needs her to believe in him, even though it's fucking stupid. He walks out and Miranda is left a bit ashamed, shooked, confused. And here you have it. Steve is clearly not feeling equal in this relationship. He clearly doesn't feel like Miranda is supporting him. He feels like he's doing everything for Miranda. He feels like he's carrying this relationship on his shoulder, the belief in the two of them, while Miranda keeps on being negative. And he's sick of it. Maybe on some level, he doesn't feel good enough. So when Miranda comes with these realistic views, it's just another shot at him. He can't find the balance because he is already off balance when it comes to Miranda. But here's the thing. Despite me understanding Steve, there are some things that I'm kind of like, The first thing is that he is a little bit deceptive in how he is saying certain things. Of course, you can understand it when he feels like he's being pushed, his lid opened and he just cannot take it anymore, then he might resort to some not so good behaviors, a little bit of toxicity in a way. You see, for me personally, knowing how the two of them came together and so on, it feels a little bit deceptive when he says how Miranda was just pessimistic when she was reluctant to get back together with him, when she was reluctant to move in together, when in reality, Miranda was totally right to be reluctant. Things went fast. She was still hurt by what happened in the past with him, and they never really talked about it. Him saying, "You're just being pessimistic," well, that's not the whole story, is it? At the same time, he does not recognize that Miranda actually did what he wanted. Be friends when she wasn't feeling like she wants to be friends. They started the friendship on the notion we can only be friends, but then he immediately made a move on her. Then he wanted exclusivity, in a way pushing her, right? Take your time, but I keep appearing at your apartment, not leaving her any space. And then threatening that this is gonna end if Miranda doesn't let him move in. Right? She did all of those things. She met him halfway. So it's kind of misleading when he says that she never does anything for him when the whole development of the relationship went by his pace, how he saw it and what he wanted. Yes, he had to argue with Miranda, but at the end of the day, he still got it. No? Having that in mind, when he says one thing, this one thing, it becomes a little bit tricky, doesn't it? I know I've been in that position where I feel like I'm constantly doing things, but then I ask for something and that person doesn't do the same for me. And then I flip. I'm like, what? You can't even do this one time, one thing. But the thing is, despite me thinking that I am asking for such a small thing, it's actually a huge thing. Can you imagine the responsibility of being seen as supportive or not supportive based on one thing? But why does it even happen? Because at least in my case, I took on things that I didn't have to take on. Instead of communicating with my partner, instead of sharing my expectations or how do I feel stressed about certain workload or how do I feel about supporting my partner all the time, but then not asking to be supported in the same way. Instead of having those conversations, even though they are uncomfortable, I would just build it up, right? I would just keep it to myself. I didn't realize that I'm doing that. But the thing is, when I actually needed certain support, I put all my expectations on that one thing. So even when my partner couldn't fulfill it, not because he wouldn't want it, but he literally couldn't do it, for me, it was the last straw. So if I take this into consideration when it comes to Steve and how he flipped, it wouldn't happen if he would be more open with Miranda how he feels, if he would express more, if he would ask for support more often, multiple times, if he would create more opportunities where Miranda could show him that she values him and she wants to be with him and so on. So there's also that part, when you say this one thing, you really need to sit down and kind of think about it. First of all, is it really just one thing? And second of all, why is it one thing? Sometimes you show up, sometimes you can't show up. But imagine if you would be judged just by that time when you don't show up. One thing that I do want to say is that they added a certain childish and kid aspect to Steve. Maybe the actor wanted to make him even more immature. I don't know why that decision was. Throwing ball. He's yelling like a kid, like putting up a tantrum. Even when he got excited to be picked, it's like a kid that got a candy. I think that was unfair. I think it took away the nuances of this actually being reality and real reaction, and you quickly just see Steve as someone who is childish. So I think that was the wrong choice. So if I say that when it comes to Steve, there are a couple of things that I think were totally unfair, which is the way he threw the ball, okay, that's a tantrum. The way he is saying one thing and totally dismissing that there are many things that Miranda showed that she is supportive. The fact that he doesn't feel like he's equal, but he never really expresses it. And then the very real fact that Miranda is not just ditching him. Miranda is not just being unsupportive. Miranda has work. From her perspective, is bringing money right now. And it's real and it's long term versus a potential $1 million shot, right? Could Miranda handle this better? Oh, 100%. Instead of her saying, I don't have time to watch you practice shoot hoops, she could have said, Steve, I'm so sorry. I really want to do it. Can we do it later? Can we reschedule it or whatever? But I need to finish this work. That would be much, much better because she herself would show to Steve that it's not about this thing being stupid. It's about her having work. But because she was stressed under work, because she didn't probably appreciate that Steve didn't recognize that she actually has work, she's not just watching TV and being lazy, then it also revealed that her attitude towards shooting hoops or this $1 million opportunity is ridiculous. They both could handle the situation a little bit better. I personally do see that Steve effed up a bit more in this situation than Miranda did, because I again see him how when he doesn't get what he wants or when he feels hurt, he tends to use some, deceptive tactics to guilt trip Miranda into eventually doing what he wants, because that's exactly what Miranda does. Miranda goes down to the court and they have this honestly ridiculous exchange. I'm going to be very honest. Again, I do not know why did they add this? I don't think it was necessary unless just to ridicule the whole situation. Steve is shooting hoops like a kid and Miranda is on the side like cheering like a mom. Like it is ridiculous.
Nice legs! Very nice!
Okay, this is for the big money!
Okay!
There is another thing that I want to add here, and it is regarding Steve not feeling equal, right? I find it quite interesting that they didn't show us any aspect, but maybe that's the point, where Steve, if he doesn't feel equal in the relationship because of Miranda's success, he doesn't actually try to find ways where he could maybe make more money if that's the problem for him, where he could try to explore how could he contribute more financially if that is his problem. It's this all or nothing mentality that usually turns into nothing, because obviously Steve didn't get the prize. But I guess the two of them are okay. I'm quoting okay, because Miranda finally supported him and now he felt seen. It needs a little bit more that people, okay? A little bit more sauce to actually fix the feeling inequality in the relationship. The fact that these are the problems that they have, inequality and so on, just shows how important would be the conversation about equality, about how Steve is feeling in the relationship, how Miranda is feeling in the relationship before they got back together. Because the first time they ended due to Steve not feeling good enough for Miranda's success, let's say. So when it comes to this storyline, as much as I could see it as dreamer versus the realist dilemma, I don't think it is. I think it just showed how Steve again tends to push Miranda until he gets what he wants. Is that driven from his own insecurities? Yes. Is it unfair that Miranda is always painted like the bad, unsupportive guy or woman? Yes. Now, after this little hiccup, Miranda and Steve are in a perfect place. According to Miranda, it is true intimacy. They are so connected, so close to one another. They get one another and everything feels effortless.
He's just so comfortable and safe.
Her new favorite thing is doing Steve's laundry on Saturday, and she couldn't be happier. To her, there is just something wonderful about reaching a stage where you can be truly yourself with someone else. Until that being yourself gets a little bit too being yourself. You see, something happens where Miranda feels like this intimacy, this true connection, is becoming a little bit too comfortable. Doing one of her favorite things, Steve's laundry, she gets hit by Steve's shit on his underwear. What the F? Miranda is wondering if she mistaken true intimacy with falling into a rut. Like this is feeling a little bit too comfortable.
I tell you one thing, when your boyfriend is so comfortable he can't be bothered to wipe his ass. Oh God, that's the end of romance right there.
And I want to ask you, when it comes to relationships, do you have your own limits, or is it everything open? I feel truly connected with someone and I feel like the relationship is the best when I can really be myself, shit, farts and all. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I am very much against the let me be on the toilet while you're taking a shower. Let me rip one out when we are watching a movie. Like, I feel we don't have to go there. Okay, we can keep some spark, some romance between the two of us. The thing is, I wouldn't do that even with anyone else than my family. Even my family, I would feel a little bit uncomfortable. So maybe that's the thing. In general, I don't feel really comfortable with these things. Like, best believe, if I go out, I'll be stacking that paper in the toilet before I do my number 2. And this is too much information, I know, but maybe you just got a tip, and I'm glad to help. Miranda's limit is Steve's shit on his underwear. And I'm probably saying shit too much in this video. Shit. Now for Miranda, luckily, Steve knows how to spice things up. One day, when she's doing the laundry again and she's dreaded to see another shit stain, Steve comes in and he makes his stain. No, where am I going with this? He spices it up a little bit, if you know what I mean. The washing machine, moving up and down. They sitting on it. Yeah, I couldn't be more clear. False alarm. They still got it. But everything going so perfectly. Is it time for the next step? Miranda and Steve are having lunch, and Miranda is getting increasingly annoyed with the amount of kids in this restaurant. She doesn't get when did it become normal or popular or acceptable that kids come to a restaurant.
Don't get me wrong, I love babies. I just don't love babies with my soup.
Steve is, Miranda being negative again. He likes kids around. They're fun. They should do it. I think I nailed that impersonation of Steve. Did I?
We should do it. We should have a baby.
Yes, Biz, they should have babies. No. Miranda and Steve have been living together for 2 months. That makes them being back together for what? 2.5 months? And I'm being very generous. And he already wants to have babies. Now. Maybe it's true intimacy. Or maybe someone is just fast-tracking this relationship a little bit too much. What is up with Steve and wanting to have babies now with Miranda? I mean, not long ago, he was upset that he doesn't feel equal in the relationship. Is he trying to lock that ass down? Wow, that feels nasty. To me personally, this stinks of Steve trying to push Miranda again a little bit more. Just another push. While Miranda obviously thinks he's joking, he's being serious, and that freaks her out. What does he mean he wants babies?
You're serious.
Well, their baby would be the cutest, and the timing is perfect. Miranda is like, What do you mean the timing is perfect? It is the worst time. I am working day in, day out to become partner. Like, there's no way I can take on having a baby right now. I have stress enough.
Come on. I want a baby to be fun.
How the fuck is this a real adult man? Like, seriously, what the fuck is with this character? Like I said, the actor is playing too much into this immature thing, or they really did dirty to Steve to write him like this. Like, he really is a man-child. That's how he's acting. I find it very hard to believe that someone in his 30s would act this way. Like, oh my God, it will be fun. And if they do, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. Can you walk away? I wish the way Steve was portrayed was a bit more, this is an unserious guy, and a little less, this is a child. Just find some realistic middle ground. Because I do believe that there are people who just think that having a baby is just fun, right? It's nothing. It's, I'm going to play with them. But when they're adding this childish attitude to it, it just makes it a little bit unrealistic, to be honest.
Do you have any idea how much work a baby is?
Miranda is a bit more realistic. First of all, do you even understand what does it mean having a baby? It's not just easy peasy as boiling an egg. And even that can get tricky. You need to get that perfect runny consistency, but not too runny. Miranda. Steve knows that it takes a lot of work, but he still feels like they could totally do it. I mean, he will spend time with the kid during the day. He's gonna play with him and watch TV. And then in the evening, he's gonna go to work, right? Sure, Steve. And then I'm gonna be the one who's gonna stay up all night taking care of the kid. And then next day, working 14 hours so I can become partner.
So I can afford the apartment. You're watching all this Sesame Street in.
The difference between the dreamer and the realist, huh? Or a moron and someone who has some sense. Finally, Steve gets it. Steve knows that he just got it. Are you freaking kidding me? No, that's not Steve. Steve immediately changes his face, his expression. The life gets sucked out of his face. He hopes the baby is gonna inherit his positive attitude.
Let's hope the baby inherits my positive attitude.
And here, ladies and gentlemen, Steve pulls out the Miranda is negative to justify his own idiotic behavior or wishes, or the lack of comprehending what does it mean to have a baby. It's classic Steve. Deflect, don't actually listen and grasp to Miranda's concern. Don't try to talk about it, but just make it look that Miranda is the problem because she's always so negative. If you think about it, Steve always does this. Every time Miranda expresses some kind of doubt or some kind of concern, he is just dismissing it and making Miranda the problem. It totally shows how he has no empathy and no actual support to Miranda, to his partner. He's totally like, oh, I don't hear, I don't see. Is that a good partner? But sure, Steve is one of the best. And I feel sorry for you, okay? I really do. It's another late night working for Miranda. As she's sitting in the kitchen, let's say, behind the desk trying to work, Steve is watching cartoons and he is watching it on high volume. Miranda is getting annoyed and she asks him to turn down the volume because she is working. Now, a part of me is also wondering, was it really the volume or was it just the fact that Miranda felt how she is working, how she has all this burden of, let's say, even paying the apartment that they both live in because she says it like implying that she's the one who's taking care of it, while Steve is just, careless, watching TV, watching cartoon, and not in a way contributing to anything. Pair that with not long ago, he asked her to support him in this wild dream of winning $1 million. Maybe there could be, if these were like real life people, that underneath the problem is that now you don't want to pursue maybe something else to help with both of us being more financially secured. So it could be that Miranda is actually annoyed also because of that aspect. And she should talk about it with Steve, if that would be the thing. Steve obviously, again, doesn't acknowledge what Miranda is asking him to do while she's working, because at the end of the day, she needs to get used to the noise if they're gonna have kids around.
We're really not in a great place right now. And I don't think... Can we have this conversation, please, without Scooby-Doo?
But Scoobs, what about the ghost?
And this pisses Miranda even more off.
Miranda.
Miranda has a little chat with her friend Carrie, and she shares how her and Steve are in kind of a shitty place right now. They fight all the time. She's working long hours because she's trying to make partner. And Steve seems to see having a baby as the perfect solution. Now, we've heard it before. Let's have a baby and everything will be fixed. We also heard it how delusional that is. But I do wonder, why do people do that? Why do people even think that a baby is a solution? So the only thing that I kind of see would be driving this kind of behavior is a desperate need for reassurance. Maybe Steve on some level feels that Miranda is not reassuring in this relationship. I mean, he expressed how she keeps on doubting them. Instead of actually acknowledging that, instead of asking Miranda, how would you feel more secure in this relationship? Or if she feels secure in the relationship, how could she show Steve that he has nothing to worry about, right? Instead of having that difficult, mature conversation, he's like, let's have a baby. Let's have a baby, and this is the reassurance I need. If she agrees to have a baby with me, then she will be with me forever, and I don't have to worry about it.
He's using a baby as a band-aid for everything that's wrong with us.
Miranda also shares with Carrie that her and Steve always seem to play these roles where Miranda is the nagging mommy and Steve is the kid. Now, this parent-child dynamic, the woman feels like she's a mom while the man feels like he's a kid, is so common. Like, let's not pretend that we haven't heard about it yet, and that this is so delusional and blah, 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 blah. Wasn't there like a TikTok trend where moms were kind of sharing how the guy can't do anything? And then there was this also, the backlash of shaming their husbands online and so on, which is also kind of fucked up. But the reality is, as much as we wish it wouldn't be, there are still dynamics where a wife takes on much more responsibility when it comes to household, when it comes to children, when it comes to even taking care of finances and this and that, while the guy is just working, right? And the guy almost doesn't know how to clean after himself type of thing. I personally believe that it is still quite common because the generations we are in are still those where from an early age, a girl, let's say, a young girl or daughter was taught how to clean, how to cook. The boys were playing with cars. The boys were just being boys, right? One was actually just playing. The other one was learning crucial survivor skills, preparing food. Then, of course, changes are happening. Parents are learning how to, no matter the gender, the importance of responsibilities, the skills of cooking, cleaning, taking care of the environment, and so on, right? It is very common that this dynamic develops. In this case, Miranda takes on the motherly figure, while Steve is a little bit of a kid. It could also happen that Miranda herself is sourcing worth from this dynamic. If we think about how Miranda is presented, fighting for her spot in a man's world, it could be subconsciously, Miranda tends to do, I'm capable, I'll take on, right? That's how I'm showing that I'm a capable person, a worthy person. I'm equal to the man, without realizing that she's actually taking away the possibility of real partnership. Instead of taking on the burden that she needs to make partner to pay for this apartment, she could actually talk with Steve and they could both agree how can they find other sources, or how can Steve contribute more so she doesn't have to work this much. She could have had that conversation with Steve, and it would also give Steve the opportunity to actually show up and then see how much of a partner also Steve actually is. Another thing, why is she taking on this role, which then becomes a mommy role, is because she is actually struggling on relying on another person, on relying on someone else. She always did it by herself. She always fought hard to get where she is. Deep down, she doesn't really feel good trusting that someone else can actually take on some of the burden that will actually be there for her. And here, the importance of having the right partner is crucial, or at least having open conversations and agreement how to support one another. You see, in my personal opinion, Steve he's not the right partner to deal with it. If Miranda is someone who struggles with trusting that she can rely on someone else, the fuck is Steve, who is always chill, gonna help her with that? She actually needs someone who is more like her, who also takes on responsibility and shows her that she can let go a little bit more. But she cannot develop that trust that she can let go a bit more when she's paired with someone who screams, I don't take responsibility. I'm just chill. I just come up with this idea. I just want to do things because they're fun. I'm going to win $1 million by shooting a hoop. Things like it's just not the match. And this is, I talked about it before, this trap of opposites attract, right? I've heard it many times how Miranda and Steve are perfect for one another because they balance each other out, right? Steve brings that soft side out of Miranda. But the problem is, unless there is active conversation of how to also overcome these differences and not just fall into the attraction and the novelty that plays into the attraction, it's gonna crash and burn. It's going to crash and burn when it is the most important. Because instead of Steve bringing out that soft side from Miranda, right, when she is clearly now stressing because she has a lot of work and so on, he's adding on to it. He's even like, let's have a baby. When it's important, that chill side doesn't help someone like Miranda. It makes it even worse. Now, talking with Carrie, Miranda also says that a part of her is thinking, what if she's the problem?
And then I think, maybe I'm just sabotaging the relationship so I don't have to have a baby with him and actually be happy.
I mean, she does want to have kids. The clock is ticking, right? So why is she so against this idea of having a baby with Steve? Maybe she's just sabotaging herself. And this is when problems can really start to happen, okay? This is when shit can go down. Because if one person is like, let's have a baby to fix our problems, and then the other person is like, no, then at least there's some hope for this to not happen. But when one person is like, let's have a baby, and the other person starts to feel guilty to say no and feel like, well, this is the right time, that's when shit hits the fan. Because not only are you fucked, but probably also the kids that will come out of this fucked up solution. But why does this happen, right? Look, I'm trying to understand a little bit better, and cognitive dissonance comes to mind. We talked about it before, but basically, Miranda right now has two different beliefs. On one hand, she has a desire of having a baby, that this is actually a possibility for her. On the other hand, she is with a partner who she sees as not the right fit for co-parenting. Does she want to admit it or not? It is clear. She doesn't feel safe in having a baby with Steve because she doesn't feel safe that Steve will actually take on the responsibility of having a baby. She's dealing with this by looking inwards, right? If she says, I don't want a baby because I'm probably sabotaging myself, she takes away the very real reality that she doesn't feel comfortable or like she can trust that Steve is gonna take on the needed load. She can neglect that, she can dismiss that, and she can fulfill her desire of having a baby, and please Steve. It's the easy way out, right? Our brain are going like, what should I do? What should I do? And then, well, let's just say that it's my fault and I'm exaggerating, so we can do what will create the least amount of problem right now. Future, who knows? Maybe I get hit by a bus tomorrow. Basically, this reasoning that maybe she's sabotaging herself, it's just an illusion, right? It's the easy way to avoid dealing with the real issues her and Steve have. Instead of actually going into that problem, she's like, you know what? Maybe I'm just being a little bit too much, and I actually don't allow myself to be happy. It's crap. Miranda is at work and she is obviously busy, right? She's preparing for a meeting and Steve calls her. He wants to meet her.
Hey, I'm really busy. I don't really have time to talk.
Yeah, meet me in a half hour at 56 and 3rd, okay?
Dismiss your partner when they tell you that they can't? Check.
I can't. I got a meeting at 4.
Come on, Miranda, I think it'll help. Please?
Guilt trip them into doing what you want? Check. I mean, Steve is wonderful. She basically has to now put the work aside and prioritize what Steve thinks is the right solution, because otherwise she is not working on making this relationship better. It's total bullshit and it's so manipulative. It is clear that Steve has zero respect for Miranda's work. What's giving is that he is annoyed every time she even mentions work. And again, it could be because he finds it threatening to the relationship, right? Her work is the reason why the two of us are not good. And what he finds is the best solution for the two of them, because, okay, maybe baby is a little bit too much. So what about getting a puppy?
Take me home and love me.
You're insane.
In front of the puppy.
Perfect. Puppies are less demanding, and Miranda will see that we can actually handle this and have a baby. Don't you want to smack him? And if you're confused, why? Because, oh my God, who doesn't want a puppy? Blah, blah, blah. Look, first of all, dogs are responsibility. Is it different, baby and a dog? Oh my God, 100%. But for Steve to say dog is a better version, like it's a less invasive version or demand for responsibility than a kid, doesn't take away the fact that it is still a responsibility. Him proposing this solution is so ridiculous because they should work on the problems that they have without the added responsibility. So instead of Steve acknowledging that and working on that, he's saying, well, you know what? I'm going to prove to Miranda that it's not all on her, and I would contribute, right? If we would have a baby, I'm going to bring this new responsibility in and I'm going to show her how I'm going to take care of it. The problem is this new responsibility is permanent also. It's not like, oh, I'm going to promise her that I'm going to paint the walls and then I'm actually going to do it, right? And she'll see that I'm also responsible and I know when things need to be done. No, he's bringing in a freaking pet, a life, a new life in it. The same way Miranda was thinking about, oh, maybe I'm the problem and I'm just trying to sabotage to avoid addressing the real problems that they have, Steve is doing the same. Instead of actually focusing to fixing what they already have and it's not okay, he's avoiding it by bringing on a new thing that will take away from the problems that they have right now. Another part to this could be also that Steve, in whatever way, is just trying to get some sort of reassurance and commitment from Miranda, right? Let's at least bring this dog in so I feel like we are taking care of one another. Again, they haven't been back together for not even 3 months. So let that sink in. Miranda feels like she has two options, okay? Or she's gonna say yes to Steve to get this puppy, or she's gonna end up being a bitch again. And that is what happens when your partner is not trying to meet you halfway. Steve is dismissing Miranda's concerns under the Miranda is negative and pessimistic. And because Miranda herself is struggling with this and doesn't want to come off, she already thinks she's the nagging mommy, she now feels like she needs to give something to Steve. She needs to do the compromise. She needs to show that she is a partner in this relationship. So if she already said no to the baby, she cannot now say no to the puppy, not realizing that the no is because the things are not working. It has nothing to do with her being ready to have a baby or not have a baby. So she says yes.
Okay.
But soon she will learn how much of a mistake this was. And you cannot ignore the real issues that the relationship has. You see, during the night, when the puppy needs attention, needs care because it is a living being, it's Miranda who gets woken up. And it's Miranda who's trying to tend to this new puppy, while Steve is in deep sleep. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but that's also the thing when it comes to one person being raised as being very responsible and living their life in a way where they take on responsibility and they rely on themselves versus someone who has no feeling of that, let's say. The person who by default feels responsible will also by default act as responsible. Miranda can't now just ignore the fact that the puppy is crying or not hear it. Like, she is wired in a way that even when she goes to bed, because this is a new thing, like I can tell from my own experience, like when there's a new dog that I'm boarding, when I go to sleep, I never fully fall asleep because there is a part of me that knows that there's someone in the house, being that is in their own foreign environment, and I am ready to wake up, to tend to them if they need and so on, to kind of, be on the lookout with how to take care of them. I can't just fall asleep and I don't care at all. While Steve will by default just sleep through it because in any case, he's more of a chill person. The dog will survive. It's not a problem. Or the puppy will survive. It's not a problem. And I'm not saying that's not correct. Like, that could be totally fine. But it just shows that even though Steve is saying, oh, look, Miranda, I'm going to show you how this is easy. It's not going to be easy because they haven't really figured out how to feel Miranda more comfortable letting go of certain need to control or feeling of being responsible, the one who is responsible. You need to work on that. You can't just accept the person will just be that with bringing a new pet and I'm going to show how this is easy. No, her core hasn't changed. You haven't done anything for the two of them to work on how to change that core of hers. She wakes up Steve and she is mad. This is exactly what she didn't want to happen.
We get this puppy, and already I'm the only one taking care of it. I have been up all night, you're sound asleep, and this was a huge mistake.
Hey, come on, relax. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine for you because you're not doing anything.
He's just getting used to us.
And that's exactly what happens when you compromise without actually accepting what that compromise means to you. Are you really ready to do what the compromise is asking of you to do? Giving in to Steve having a puppy because she doesn't want to be a bitch in this case, right? Consider the bitch again because she already said no to the baby, is not just giving in to Steve and then it doesn't impact her at all. It's actually something that will very much have consequences for her and her involvement in this compromise. So when you're doing compromise, like really think about, am I actually doing this just for the other person and I am accepting the load that will bring on me, or do I ignore that part? And then I have to deal with the shit. Steve is trying to calm down Miranda and he's like, relax, it will be fine. He's just a puppy. Yes, he maybe needs some more attention, but it's not a big deal. But this pushes Miranda to the limit.
Come on, kiss.
Okay, this is it. I am so sick of you being the kid here. I cannot be in charge all the time. We're supposed to be equals, partners.
They are supposed to be equals. They're supposed to be partners. But she's taking on all the burden of the relationship. How could he even think that they can have a baby together when they don't even share the responsibility needed for the puppy? Steve sees it as Miranda being a little bit dramatic. Yes, it's just, we're in a rough patch right now. It's not that big of a deal. But for Miranda, that's not it. It's not just a rough patch. It's all the time. She feels like this all the time.
Great. So you're just going to give up on us just like that?
Not just like that. I have been trying not to give up on us for a long time.
She finally sees it. She sees what the real problem in this relationship is. It's not her. It's not her being too controlling or sabotaging or being a mommy. It's the relationship. It's the two of them together. This is not working.
This isn't going to work, Steve.
There's good stuff here.
Not enough.
Now, I want to add here, despite Miranda herself failing at actually having real conversations with Steve about how they can share the burden, how she can feel more comfortable, how Steve can feel more equal in the relationship. It's also on her. As much as it's Steve's responsibility to acknowledge that, it's also Miranda's. We need to remember that this whole coming back together, this whole thing, and even him moving in to get to the point where they are, first of all, happened in less than 3 months. And it was constantly pushed by Steve and Miranda eventually accepting what he wants, right? Miranda eventually agreeing to it. So this whole time, Miranda might have feel like she has no control over this development. While Steve feels like, we are just now in a rough patch, for Miranda feels like it's constant that she's fighting for Steve to actually acknowledge her concerns. It happened since the get-go. He never acknowledges, he never really accepts that Miranda does have concerns and that those are relevant. He always dismisses it. Steve is mad, and that's not true. It's just that Miranda doesn't want to work on things.
Because you don't want it to work.
That is so unfair.
Now, we already said that yes, both of them could actually talk about it and figure out how to solve it. Unfortunately, Miranda came to a point where she doesn't even want to entertain that idea anymore. She's just done. And that's what happens when you don't address things as they happen, but you keep on waiting until it blows up and you feel like there's no way back. There's nothing to fix anymore. He walks out, and again, as in Steve's manner, he leaves Miranda feeling bad because he walks out with this "you don't believe in us" type of shit, which by default puts all the responsibility on Miranda, which is totally unfair. But because she's struggling with her own things, now again, she feels like the bad person that she did this.
Steve, I really tried.
If I was Miranda, I would say, yes, I don't. I don't believe in us because you're not showing me how are you working on us. It's all on me. Is that true? We don't know, but they could have a conversation about it. Would this be solvable? I think yes, as long as the two of them would come together. Honestly, I would say that it's more at this point on Steve's side, because instead of Steve actually realizing where Miranda is in her life and the doubts that she has, he is more focused on how he will feel better in the relationship. And instead of talking to Miranda about it, how can he feel equal, he's just pushing her to give him reassurance when she's not ready to, right? All in all, this whole situation, how it developed and how it ended, if it did end, again, to me shows very clearly that Steve is the type of guy who shows how mature and loving he is, but in reality, he isn't. While Miranda, I see that she's just being almost pushed into having certain roles that she didn't even have the time to fully agree on. But what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments below which part infuriated you the most. And also, how do you feel about this Steve and Miranda dynamic? Are you leaning more towards Steve and understanding his views or more towards Miranda's? And remember, trust your individuality.